The Vought Tower's LED screens painted Times Square in promotional blue, each one cycling through slow-motion footage of the 7 saving CGI civilians from CGI disasters. Below them, a stage had been erected for America's Next Hero, Vaught's latest reality show attempting to manufacture public investment in their soupy pipeline after Stormfront's Nazi reveal had temporarily dented their approval ratings. Ashley Barrett stood backstage, pulling out another clump of hair as she reviewed the teleprompter for the 14th time. The words authentic, genuine heroism, and real American values appeared 6 times each. Stan Edgar had been explicit. The public needed to believe Vought still produced heroes, not products. The crowd of 10,000 screamed as Homelander descended from the Vought Tower roof, cape rippling in wind generated by hidden fans. His smile looked painted on because it was, Ashley thought, remembering the 2 hours of touch-ups required to hide the stress cracks forming around his mouth. America's greatest hero landed center stage, and the cameras caught him from 12 angles simultaneously for the streaming audience of 40 million. "America," Homelander said, voice amplified across the square. "Tonight we find our next guardian, our next symbol of..." The ground split open. Not metaphorically. The asphalt of 45th Street cracked like an eggshell, steam billowing upward in a column that stank of sulfur and burnt meat. The crowd's screams shifted from excitement to terror in the space between heartbeats. Ashley's tablet clattered to the ground. On every screen in Times Square, the cameras automatically refocused on the fissure. Something crawled out of hell into Manhattan. The figure rose on a motorcycle that shouldn't exist, chrome and steel wrapped in flames that burned without fuel, without heat signatures that Vaught's thermal cameras could detect. The rider's leather jacket smoked. His skull was on fire. Not a helmet designed to look like fire, not Vought special effects. Actual flames consumed flesh that wasn't there, revealing bone that gleamed white-hot in the darkness. The chain wrapped around his torso rattled like Jacob Marley's ghost, each link dripping molten metal that solidified before hitting pavement. The Ghost Rider turned his empty eye sockets toward the stage. Homelander's smile finally broke. What the fuck? The demon, because nothing else fit, gunned the motorcycle engine. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was screams. Thousands of them, layered and compressed into something that vibrated in the chest cavity. The bike launched forward, leaving a trail of hellfire that melted through asphalt down to the subway tunnels below. Vought security opened fire immediately. 40 contractors with AR-15s and Stark Industries knockoff tech unloaded 3,000 rounds in 10 seconds. Every bullet passed through flame and clattered harmlessly against pavement. Ghost Rider crashed through the security perimeter like it was made of paper. Men scattered, and those who didn't scatter burned. Not from gunfire, from proximity. The hellfire didn't spread naturally. It chose. It wrapped around a contractor who'd been present at Sage Grove Center, who'd helped dispose of the bodies from the failed V-trials. The man's screams lasted 4 seconds before his nervous system shut down from the pain. On stage, Homelander's eyes began to glow red. Finally, Ashley thought with hysterical irrelevance, some actual heroism. "Stand down!" Homelander barked, voice cutting through the chaos. He rose 3 feet off the stage, cape spreading wide for the cameras that were still broadcasting to 40 million homes. "I don't know what Vought bargain bin villain they hired for ratings, but..." The Ghost Rider looked at him. Just looked. 2 points of hellfire where eyes should be, focused with the weight of judgment that had existed before human civilization crawled out of caves. Homelander, who'd stared down nuclear weapons without blinking, who'd murdered hundreds without remorse, who feared nothing in the world. Homelander felt something in his chest tighten. The rider raised one skeletal hand and pointed, not at Homelander, At Ashley, still frozen backstage, the finger curled inward once. "Come here." "Fuck that," Ashley whispered, already running. She made it 15 feet before the chain caught her ankle. The metal links were hot, but not burning, wrapped with the precision of something that had done this 10,000 times before. Ashley hit the ground hard enough to crack her phone screen, and then she was dragging backward across concrete that tore through her Prada skirt like tissue paper. Homelander moved. Credit where it was due. The man could accelerate to Mach 3 in a dead sprint. He covered the distance in a microsecond, grabbed the chain with both hands, and pulled. The metal held. Homelander pulled harder, biceps bulging, veins standing out on his neck. The chain didn't even creak. Ghost Rider tilted his skull to one side, almost curious. Then he yanked back. Homelander, who could bench press a fighter jet, who'd stopped a plane from crashing through sheer strength, stumbled forward 3 steps. The rider pulled again. Homelander's boots carved trenches in the asphalt as he was dragged like a dog on a leash. "I am Homelander." The words came out strangled with rage and something that might have been fear. His eyes flashed. Twin beams of concentrated heat vision lanced out, the kind that had cut through buildings and melted bank vaults. The lasers hit Ghost Rider's center mass. The leather jacket charred. The ribs beneath glowed white-hot. The rider didn't stop advancing. Homelander cut the beam. For the first time in his life, his power hadn't solved the problem. The cameras caught his expression perfectly, the moment America's God realized he'd met something that didn't care about his mythology. Ashley felt herself lifted by the chain. She dangled 3 feet off the ground, face to face with a burning skull that studied her with the intensity of a coroner examining a corpse. The flames in those eye sockets flickered, and somewhere deep in whatever nightmare logic powered this thing, a judgment was being made. "Please," Ashley whispered. I'm just doing my job. I never wanted..." The Ghost Rider spoke. His voice wasn't human, it was layered. Johnny Blaze's rasp beneath Zarathos's demonic growl, 2 beings speaking through one throat. "Look at me." Ashley couldn't help it. She met those burning eyes. And the Penance stare began. Every order she'd given to cover up soup crimes played behind her eyes at hyperspeed. Every press release spinning murder as accident. Every NDA she'd forced on sexual assault victims, every time she'd chosen her career over someone's life. The guilt wasn't metaphorical. It was physical, burning in her chest like swallowed acid. She felt what the victims felt. The intern terrorized by the deep. The family of the man Translucent killed while robbing jewelry stores. The dozens trampled at the Believe Expo when A-Train had been too high on V to notice. Ashley screamed. It wasn't a horror movie scream. It was the sound of a human nervous system overloading. Homelander hit Ghost Rider from behind with enough force to crater the street. They went down in a tangle of limbs and hellfire. The rider released Ashley, who collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Homelander mounted the demon's ribcage and started throwing haymakers that could dent steel. "You don't touch my people!" Each word punctuated with a blow that shattered bone. Except the bones reformed instantly, knitting back together with hellfire as glue. Ghost Rider grabbed Homelander's wrist mid-punch. Smoke rose where palm met invulnerable skin. For the first time in Homelander's life, something burned him. The rider head-butted him. Skull met flesh. Homelander's perfect nose broke with a crack audible across the square. And then Ghost Rider spoke again, voice carrying to every camera, every phone, every screen in Times Square and the 40 million homes beyond. "Your sins will find you." He threw Homelander through the Jumbotron. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, smash that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Fucking diabolical. Vought Tower's Emergency Operations Center erupted into controlled chaos. 30 analysts scrambled across workstations while Ashley's screams still echoed from the speakers, carrying the live feed. Stan Edgar stood in the center of the storm, hands clasped behind his back, watching the monitors with the expression of a man reviewing quarterly earnings reports. On screen, Homelander extracted himself from the ruined jumbotron, his face already healing but his dignity thoroughly shattered. "Threat assessment," Edgar said quietly. "Unknown entity. Possible super," the lead analyst stammered, pulling up thermal imaging. "Except, sir, there's no heat signature consistent with compound V metabolism. The flame is registering as, this can't be right, it's reading as negative temperature. Like the fire is pulling heat from the environment." "Supernatural," Edgar said, tasting the word. "Interesting." On the screens, Ghost Rider had remounted his motorcycle. The hellfire trail he'd left was still burning, flames spreading through the cracks in the pavement but not igniting anything nearby. Selective combustion. Vought scientists had theorized about targeted molecular excitation, but never successfully weaponized it. This thing was doing it instinctively. "Military response ETA?" Edgar asked. "FBSA is mobilizing containment teams. 15 minutes. "Too slow." Edgar turned to his assistant. "Get me Adam Borg. Tell him to activate the Sage Grove assets immediately." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, after the last incident, now." While Edgar made calls that would doom a dozen people, Ghost Rider was hunting. His skull swiveled with mechanical precision, scanning the fleeing crowd. The Penance stare had shown him something during Ashley's judgment, a web of complicity that stretched from this square to every corner of Vought's empire. His purpose here crystallized. The dimensional breach hadn't been accident. It had been invitation. Hell itself had smelled the concentration of unpunished evil and sent its spirit of vengeance to collect. Homelander landed between Ghost Rider and the fleeing civilians with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. Blood dripped from his nose, already nearly healed, but the psychological damage would take longer. America had watched him bleed on live television. "Round 2, you burning piece of shit," Homelander snarled. "And this time, I'm not holding back for the cameras." Ghost Rider's response was to rev the motorcycle engine. The sound was louder now, the screams more distinct. Homelander recognized one of them. Madeline Stillwell's voice, compressed and tortured in that mechanical roar. The recognition froze him for half a second. Ghost Rider accelerated. The motorcycle hit Homelander at 60 miles per hour and kept going. They crashed through the Vought recruitment stage, through the backstage area where crew members scattered, through the wall of the building behind it. Homelander punched at the rider's ribs while they tumbled, each impact shattering bone that reformed instantly. They hit the ground in the middle of a souvenir shop selling 7 merchandise, skidding through racks of Homelander action figures that melted from proximity to hellfire. "What are you?" Homelander demanded, grabbing the rider's skull with both hands. The bone was hot enough to raise blisters even on his invulnerable palms. "Some kind of new super? A Vought experiment? Tell me!" Ghost Rider's jaw opened. His voice came out in that doubled timbre, Blaze and Zarathos speaking as one. "John, son of nothing, raised in a cage, fed on lies and called a god." Homelander's grip tightened hard enough to crack stone. "How do you know?" "We know all sins. We have judged emperors and slavers. We have burned the guilty for 4,000 years. The flames in Ghost Rider's eyes flared brighter. "You're not special. You're not a god. You're a product of human evil, and you will face judgment like all others." "I am a god." Homelander's scream shattered every window in the shop. He lifted Ghost Rider and slammed him through the floor, through the basement, into the subway tunnel below. Commuters screamed and fled as the two beings crashed onto the tracks. An approaching train saw them and emergency braked, but momentum carried it forward. Ghost Rider stood up in the path of the train and raised one hand. The hellfire chain unwound from his torso with a rattling that echoed through the tunnel. He swung it once, and the chain wrapped around the train's front car. Metal groaned. The chain held. 30 tons of steel and passengers jerked to a stop so sudden that every standing passenger fell. Then Ghost Rider used the train as a flail. He swung the entire front car like a baseball bat. Homelander saw it coming and braced, arms crossed in front of his chest. The impact drove him backward through concrete support pillars, through maintenance tunnels, through barriers that were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of structural damage. Water pipes burst. Power lines showered sparks. Somewhere above, Times Square was evacuating in a stampede that would kill 3 people and injure dozens. Homelander emerged from the rubble with murder in his eyes. Okay, you want to play with the big boys? Let me show you what I do to things that don't kneel. His eyes glowed crimson, not the controlled beams he used for show. This was full power, the heat vision that could melt through a plane's hull in seconds. He didn't aim for Ghost Rider's chest this time, he aimed for the head. Twin lances of concentrated solar temperature energy hit the flaming skull. The bone glowed white, then yellow, then blue with heat. For 5 seconds, Homelander poured everything he had into erasing this thing from existence. The tunnel walls melted, steel tracks turned to liquid. The concrete floor vitrified into glass. When Homelander finally stopped, panting slightly from exertion, Ghost Rider was still standing. The skull had changed. It was pure hellfire now, flames so intense they burned black at the core. When the rider spoke, his voice had shed the human component entirely. This was Zarathos, the demon speaking through a vessel that was no longer entirely flesh. Your power is borrowed. Mine is eternal. You were made. I am. Ghost Rider's chain lashed out. It wrapped around Homelander's neck and pulled tight. The Soupy grabbed at it, trying to tear it free, but the metal was no longer obeying physical laws. It was judgment made manifest, and it constricted based on guilt, not strength. Homelander felt pressure on his throat for the first time since childhood. Real pressure. The kind that restricted airflow, his vision blurred at the edges. Panic, that ancient, forgotten emotion, surged through his nervous system. Look at me, Ghost Rider commanded, dragging Homelander forward. No! Homelander squeezed his eyes shut, the first defensive reflex of his adult life. I won't. You can't. Look at me. The command carried the weight of divine authority. Homelander's eyes opened involuntarily, and the Penance stare began. Every person Homelander had ever killed flashed before him. The man in the street who'd called him a fraud. The woman who'd tried to blackmail Vought. The journalists who'd investigated Compound V. Madeline Stillwell's face as he burned through her skull. The hijackers on Flight 37 screaming as he let them plummet. The protesters he'd lasered through, the children in that subway during his meltdown last year. But Homelander wasn't like Ashley. His psychopathy ran deeper than career ambition. He felt the pain he'd caused, recognized it intellectually, but the emotional processing that would have broken another person simply didn't engage. He'd been raised without empathy, conditioned without guilt. The Penance stare showed him atrocities through his victim's eyes, but inside his chest, where normal humans would feel crushing remorse, Homelander felt only rage. Rage that something dared judge him. Rage that his power wasn't absolute. Rage that filled the emptiness where a soul should have been. His eyes snapped back into focus, and they were glowing. Not with heat vision, with pure Compound V-enhanced fury. Nice try, Homelander snarled, but you can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't give a fuck. He grabbed Ghost Rider's wrist and snapped the chain through sheer force. Then he hit the rider with an uppercut that sent him crashing through 6 layers of tunnel ceiling, up through street level, emerging in the middle of 7th Avenue, where traffic immediately crashed in a 50-car pileup. Homelander flew up through the hole, blood streaming from his knuckles where the hellfire had actually burned him. His suit was scorched, his hair was disheveled, and for the first time in years, he was breathing hard. Above him, Ghost Rider climbed to his feet amidst twisted metal and screaming civilians. His skull had reformed to bone, the hellfire dimming to its usual intensity. Around them, every cell phone camera in Manhattan was recording, and in Vought Tower, Stan Edgar was smiling. The Penance Stare Protocol began with a terrified phone call from a Vought junior executive to his priest. Within 20 minutes, every religious scholar in Vought's massive consulting network was being pulled into emergency video conferences. Stan Edgar didn't believe in God, but he believed in information. The information said this wasn't a soup. Demonic entity, Dr. Catherine Rao said from the screen in the conference room. She was Vaught's leading expert on esoteric threats, a position created after Stormfront's Nazi occult experiments had briefly opened a portal to somewhere unpleasant. The chain, the hellfire, the judgment aspect, this matches historical accounts of the spirit of vengeance. Multiple mythological traditions reference similar entities. Zarathos from Mesopotamian texts, the Christian concept of God's wrath made manifest, even certain Native American Wendigo variants. Edgar studied the freeze frame of Ghost Rider on the main screen. Weaknesses? Faith-based containment theoretically works. Holy ground, consecrated silver, exorcism rituals. But sir, Rao's face paled. If this truly is a spirit of vengeance, it's here because it detected something. These entities don't manifest randomly. They appear in response to concentrated, unpunished evil. The room fell silent. Everyone present worked for Vought International. Everyone present knew exactly what unpunished evil they'd been party to. Ridiculous, Edgar said smoothly. Theological mythology doesn't dictate corporate strategy. This entity is vulnerable to something. Everything is. Adam, tell me Sage Grove assets are ready. Adam Borg, Vaught's head of advanced threat response, nodded from his screen. Deploying now, sir. But if Dr. Rao is correct about the entity's nature, then we contain it long enough to study it. Imagine Compound V enhanced with genuine supernatural properties. We'd own not just superheroes, but actual divinity. Market value would be, Edgar smiled thinly, incalculable. On the streets of Manhattan, Ghost Rider walked through smoke and chaos. Emergency vehicles couldn't reach Times Square. The roads were impassable with abandoned cars and fleeing civilians. The hellfire trail he'd left earlier still burned, creating a barrier of supernatural flame that fire trucks couldn't cross. NYPD established a perimeter 6 blocks out and prayed. The rider's hollow gaze swept the wreckage. Homelander had disappeared after their last exchange, probably retreating to lick his wounds and strategize. Good. The super wasn't the target. He was merely one symptom of a much larger infection. Ghost Rider's mission had crystallized during the Penance Stare. This entire city was built on a foundation of commodified evil. Vought had industrialized sin, turned it into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and convinced the world to worship it. Hell wanted an accounting. The motorcycle's engine growled. Ghost Rider mounted and gunned it, heading not toward Vought Tower, too obvious, but toward a nondescript building in Chelsea. The Penance Stare on Ashley had revealed the location. Sage Grove Center, New York operations, where the occult experiments had torn reality enough to let him through, where they were still torturing people in the name of corporate advancement. He made it 3 blocks before the Sage Grove assets hit him. They came from the rooftops, 12 figures in tactical gear moving with enhanced speed and coordination. Vaught's enhanced soldiers, the ones they didn't talk about publicly. Humans dosed with experimental Compound V variants, just stable enough to be weaponized, and just expendable enough that their inevitable deaths wouldn't make headlines. The first one landed in front of the motorcycle with super strength and durability. Ghost Rider didn't break. The bike hit the man at 70 miles per hour and kept going, the Hellfire engine burning through enhanced flesh like paper. The soldier screamed as he disintegrated. Compound V-enhanced cells unable to regenerate faster than Hellfire consumed them. The others adapted quickly. 3 with speedster abilities rushed Ghost Rider from the sides while the rest provided covering fire with experimental energy weapons. The bullets weren't conventional. They were solidified V-energy, designed to disrupt the cellular structure of Supes. They passed right through Ghost Rider without effect. You couldn't disrupt biology that didn't exist. But the speedsters were a problem. They moved faster than Ghost Rider could track, landing dozens of enhanced strength blows per second. Each impact cracked bone. The rider's skeleton fractured in 100 places and reformed just as quickly. Hellfire knit him back together faster than they could break him apart. Ghost Rider's chain lashed out in a circle, spinning at speeds that created a perimeter of death. It caught one speedster mid-stride, wrapping around his torso. The chain constricted, and the man's sins, volunteering for experiments he knew would be tested on unwilling subjects, accepting bonuses for every successful subject termination, blazed in his mind. The Penance stare worked differently on the willing guilty. There was no surprise, no shocked realization, just the pure, concentrated agony of facing the weight of choices they'd made with open eyes. The speedster's scream lasted until his vocal cords burned away. The other soldiers watched their comrade reduced to ash and charred skeleton. They'd signed contracts accepting their own mortality, but this wasn't death. This was judgment. "Fall back," the team leader's voice cracked over the comms. "Disengage! Disengage!" Ghost Rider didn't let them retreat. His chain extended impossibly long, wrapping around ankles and throats, dragging the enhanced soldiers back toward him. One by one, he forced them to look into his eyes. One by one, he showed them what they'd done. The team leader lasted longest. His guilt was more complex. He genuinely believed he was protecting the world from Supe threats. He'd rationalized every torture session at Sage Grove as necessary evil. But rationalization wasn't innocence. And when Ghost Rider's flames showed him the victims' perspectives, the terrified subjects begging for mercy as V-cocktails liquefied their organs, the man's carefully constructed moral framework shattered. Ghost Rider released him. The man collapsed, still alive but broken in ways that would never heal. His body would function. His mind would never stop replaying what he'd seen. A camera drone buzzed overhead. VNN's emergency news stream was broadcasting the slaughter live. 7 million viewers watched Ghost Rider walk away from smoldering corpses, chain rattling as it rewound around his torso. The rider looked up at the camera drone, looked directly into the lens, and spoke to every screen in America. "Your heroes are products. Your saviors are slaves. Your gods are children playing with power they don't understand. I am vengeance for every buried crime. I am judgment for every lie you've been sold. And I'm coming for everyone who built this industry of evil." The chain lashed out. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks and melted plastic. In Vought Tower, Ashley Barrett regained consciousness in the medical wing. She was strapped to a gurney, electrodes monitoring her vitals, while 3 doctors argued over brain scans showing activity patterns that shouldn't exist. The Penance stare had physically altered her neural pathways, burning guilt directly into her cerebral cortex. She would never forget what she'd done, not the way normal people forgot. It would be with her every waking moment for the rest of her life. "Ashley." Stan Edgar's voice. She turned her head. The motion sent lightning bolts of pain through her skull and saw him standing beside her bed, expression neutral. "I need you to tell me everything you saw during your encounter with the entity." Ashley's voice came out as a rasp. "It showed me. Everyone we've hurt. I felt what they felt. The pain, the terror, Her breath hitched. "Sir, we have to stop. All of it. Sage Grove, the cover-ups, the contracts. We have to... Ashley, you're experiencing temporary psychological trauma. It will pass." "It won't." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the burns on her cheeks from the hellfire. "I can still feel them. Every person the Deep assaulted. Every family A-Train destroyed. Every experiment that went wrong. I'll feel it forever. That's what that thing does. It makes you really understand what you've done." Edgar nodded slowly, as if she'd confirmed a hypothesis. "Fascinating. The entity induces permanent empathetic scarring. That's extraordinarily useful information." He turned to leave. "Sir, please rest, Ashley. We'll discuss your continued employment when you're stable." When he was gone, Ashley stared at the ceiling and whispered, "We deserve him. We deserve everything he's going to do." 6 blocks away, Ghost Rider pulled his motorcycle to a stop outside the Sage Grove, New York facility. It was disguised as a psychiatric treatment center, complete with cheerful signage about holistic mental health care. But beneath the surface, behind locked doors and underfloors protected by 6 feet of reinforced concrete, people were screaming. The rider dismounted. His boots left burning footprints on the sidewalk. Security cameras tracked him, feeding footage to a dozen different agencies: FBSA, CIA, NSA, Homeland Security. They all watched and did nothing. What could they do? Send more men with guns? Ghost Rider placed one skeletal palm against the building's front door. Hellfire spread like oil across the metal, into the locks, through the security systems. The door opened with a groan. Inside, alarms began to scream. Too late. Far too late. The spirit of vengeance had come for its harvest. Homelander's penthouse smelled like scorched flesh. His own. The burns on his hands and throat had healed, but the phantom pain lingered, a completely novel experience. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Manhattan burn in patches where Ghost Rider's hellfire still defied conventional extinguishing methods. Behind him, the Deep, A-Train, and Black Noir waited in uncomfortable silence. "Sir," the Deep ventured, his voice pitched with nervous energy. "The FBSA wants our official statement about the entity. VNN is running your fight on loop. Some of the coverage is not optimal." "Not optimal," Homelander repeated flatly. He turned, and the Deep flinched at the expression on his face. "I bled on camera. I was thrown through a building. America watched me lose a fight for the first time in my life." "Not optimal doesn't quite capture it, does it?" A train shifted his weight. "Look, man, we've all had bad days. Remember when Stormfront? Do not compare me to her." Homelander's eyes flashed red. The train's heart rate tripled instantly, the speedster's enhanced metabolism flooding him with adrenaline. "Stormfront failed because she was weak. Ideological. I'm not weak. I'm just dealing with something outside normal parameters." Black Noir remained silent as always, but his body language suggested readiness. Good. Homelander needed competent people around him. The Deep was useless. A-Train was barely holding together after his heart problems. But Noir was a professional. "We're going to kill it," Homelander said. "Whatever that thing is, it's flesh and bone under the fire. Everything with mass can be destroyed. I just need the right approach." His phone buzzed. "Edgar." Homelander almost declined the call, but corporate daddy's disapproval would make everything worse. He answered. "John." Edgar's voice was its usual measured calm. "We've lost contact with Sage Grove, New York. Last transmission showed the entity entering the facility 13 minutes ago. I need you and the 7 to contain this situation before it escalates further." "Escalates?" Homelander laughed, high and sharp. "Stan, the thing hit me with a train. It's a demon, a literal goddamn demon, and you want me to contain it. Why don't you send more of your disposable science experiments? They worked out great last time." Silence on the other end. Then, the public is watching, John. Right now, they see you losing to something that looks like a movie villain. If you don't reassert dominance, the narrative becomes, Homelander can't protect America. Your Q rating drops, your merchandising value drops, everything we've built together drops. The words hit harder than Ghost Rider's punches. Homelander's jaw clenched. Fine, we'll go, but Stan, if I die, and I won't, but if I did, I'm taking that thing to hell with me and making you explain it to the shareholders. He hung up. The seven looked at him expectantly. Suit up, Homelander ordered. We're going to Sage Grove, and this time, we're bringing everything. Inside Sage Grove, New York, Ghost Rider walked through corridors painted with cheerful colors meant to disguise their true purpose. His boots left scorch marks on laminate flooring designed to be easy to clean blood off of. Security personnel had already fled, the smart ones at least. The brave or stupid ones had opened fire, and their bodies now decorated the walls like grotesque art installations. The rider followed the screams. Not from the guards. From below. The real facility was underground, hidden behind hydraulic doors that required biometric authorization to open. Ghost Rider melted through the doors with hellfire that didn't care about security clearances. The stairwell descended 5 levels. At the bottom, he found Hell's anteroom on Earth. The experimentation theater was vast, 30 hospital beds arranged in rows, each occupied by a human test subject in various stages of compound V-induced transformation. Some were still recognizably human. Others had mutated so severely that flesh grew in impossible geometries. Bones exited through skin at wrong angles, organs pulsed outside body cavities. They were alive. That was the cruelty. Vought's scientists had gotten very good at keeping them alive through transformations that should have been fatal. Scientists in white coats fled at Ghost Rider's approach. He let them go. Their time would come. The subjects, the victims, needed his attention first. The rider approached the nearest bed. A woman, maybe 30, her body covered in chitinous growths that cracked and bled whenever she moved. Her eyes tracked him with desperate hope. "Please," she whispered, "please kill me. It hurts so much. They said it would give me powers. They said I'd be special. I just wanted to be special." Ghost Rider placed one skeletal hand on her forehead. Hellfire flowed gently, not burning but transforming. The pain receptors in her brain shut down first, then the corrupted compound V in her cells. The molecules that had twisted her DNA into impossible shapes. The hellfire burned away the poison, but it was too late to save her. The damage was too extensive, but he could give her peace. The woman's breathing steadied. The agony left her face. She looked up at the burning skull above her and smiled. "Thank you," she said. Then she died. Ghost Rider moved to the next bed, and the next, and the next. 30 subjects, 30 mercy killings, each one a life destroyed by Vaught's endless hunger for the next product, the next power, the next way to monetize the human form. When he finished, the rider stood in a room of corpses and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no righteousness, just the cold certainty that hell's work was never done, because humanity's capacity for evil was infinite. Footsteps behind him, heavy boots, multiple people. Ghost Rider turned. The seven had arrived. Homelander floated through the broken security door, cape spreading dramatically. Queen Maeve flanked him on the left, her armor dented from a fight earlier that week. A train vibrated at super speed on the right, nervous energy made manifest. The Deep stood behind them, trident in hand, looking like he desperately wanted to be anywhere else. Black Noir took point, silent and lethal. "All right, Skeletor," Homelander said, voice echoing in the death chamber. "Here's how this goes. You surrender, we study you, and maybe, we don't let Noir rip your spine out. Or you can fight, and we'll beat you so badly that demons will tell scary stories about what happened here. Ghost Rider looked at the seven. Really looked. The Penance stare activated passively, showing him the weight of sin each carried. Homelander. An ocean of guilt, but the Psychopath's inability to process it meant the stare would only enrage him further. Queen Maeve. Deep wells of self-loathing. She'd compromised every principle she'd ever had. The stare would break her, but she was already broken. A-Train. Moderate guilt over Robin's death. Heavier guilt over other casualties. Recent attempts at redemption genuinely conflicted. The stare would hurt, but might actually push him toward change. The deep, pathetic guilt, wrapped in narcissism and victimhood. He'd rationalized his assaults as the industry. The stare would devastate him, and he deserved it. Black noir, opaque. Something about his psychology blocked the stare's initial scan. Trauma-induced dissociation, maybe. Or just so much practiced compartmentalization that guilt couldn't find purchase. "You are not heroes," Ghost Rider said, his doubled voice filling the chamber. "You are products. Manufactured. Sold. Marketed. You wear capes and call yourselves saviors. But you are symptoms of the disease I came to burn out." "Oh, fuck off with the monologuing," Homelander snapped. "Black Noir, show this thing what happens when you bore me." Noir moved with professional efficiency. No showboating, no quips. Just immediate, lethal violence. He closed the distance in 2 steps and drove a combat knife toward Ghost Rider's skull. Not the flaming parts, but the solid bone structure. The blade was carbonadium, designed to pierce super durability. It shattered against Ghost Rider's jaw. Noir adapted instantly, shifting to hand-to-hand combat. He was a master of 17 martial arts, trained since childhood to be the perfect weapon. He struck nerve clusters, pressure points, joints designed to manipulate superhuman physiology. Ghost Rider didn't have physiology. He had hellfire holding bones together in the shape of violence. The rider caught Noir's wrist mid-strike and pulled him forward into a headbutt that cracked the soup's reinforced mask. Then he threw Noir across the chamber. The silent assassin crashed through 3 hospital beds and embedded in the concrete wall. A-Train moved next, because speed was his only advantage. He circled Ghost Rider at Mach 2, landing dozens of hits per second. Each punch carried enough force to shatter steel. Against Ghost Rider, they accomplished nothing. It was like punching smoke. The rider's bones fractured and reformed faster than A-Train could break them. "He's not even slowing down," A-Train shouted, voice pitched high with fear. "Then hit him harder," Homelander commanded. Ghost Rider's chain lashed out mid-circle. It caught A-Train's ankle with perfect timing, using the speedster's own momentum against him. A train went down face first at supersonic speeds. His impact with the floor created a crater and broke his jaw. The deep charged with his trident raised, screaming something about the ocean's wrath. Ghost Rider grabbed the trident's prongs mid-thrust, hellfire melting the metal into slag. The Deep's hands blistered from the heat. He stumbled backward, cradling his burned palms. "We're not doing it," Queen Maeve said quietly. "Are we? We're not actually going to beat him." "Shut up." Homelander's eyes were glowing, full power building. "We're the fucking 7. We don't lose to..." Ghost Rider looked at Homelander. Just looked. The weight of judgment fell like a physical thing. "Your move," the rider said. "Let me show you what a real god looks like." The first thing Billy Butcher noticed about the security footage was that Ghost Rider wasn't killing indiscriminately. The thing, demon, soup, whatever the fuck it was, had a pattern. Every person it burned, every skull it cracked, every body left charred in its wake had one thing in common. They were guilty. Guards who'd tortured subjects, Vought executives who'd signed off on experiments, even Ashley Barrett, who'd spent her career covering up atrocities. The innocent bystanders. The demon walked right past them. "Well, ain't that interesting?" Butcher muttered, leaning back in his chair. The boys' current hideout, a condemned pizzeria in Queens, smelled like mold and old cheese, but the Wi-Fi signal they'd illegally tapped was solid. It's got a bloody moral code. Huey looked up from his laptop, where he'd been compiling social media reactions to Ghost Rider's rampage. Billy, are you seriously considering this? The thing is killing people. Like, a lot of people. Guilty people, Mother's Milk interjected. He stood at the window, watching the smoke rising from Manhattan. Every single person Ghost Rider's taken out has been connected to Vaught's crimes. Security contractors at Sage Grove, the enhanced soldiers. No civilians. Frenchie lit a cigarette, ignoring MM's immediate glare. It is like a, how do you say, a cosmic audit. The universe finally checking Vaught's books and finding them very, very cooked. Kimiko signed something rapidly. Frenchie translated. She says it feels holy, like divine punishment. She wants to know if we can use it. Use it? Huey's voice cracked. Guys, it's a demon with a flaming skull. That makes people look at it, and then they scream until they die. Exactly, Butcher said, grinning like a shark. It's doing our job for us. We've been trying to take down Vought for years with blackmail and explosives and fucking around with their image. This thing walks into Times Square and makes Homelander look like a bitch in front of 40 million people. That's worth something. Mem crossed his arms. Butcher, we don't know what that thing wants. Could be it burns out Vought and then decides where next. We're not exactly innocent. The room fell silent. Everyone had blood on their hands. Huey had killed Translucent. had covered up bodies. Frenchie's criminal past was extensive and violent. Kimiko's kill count was in the dozens. And Butcher had done things that haunted him in rare, quiet moments. Then we stay useful, Butcher said. We make sure Skullface knows we're on the same side. Enemy of my enemy and all that rot. That's insane, Huey said. No, mate. What's insane is letting this opportunity slip away because you're scared of a little hellfire. Butcher stood up, grabbed his coat. I'm going to have a chat with our flaming friend. See if we can't form an alliance. Billy, started. Stay here. Monitor comms. If I die screaming, you'll know negotiation failed. Butcher headed for the door. I'm coming with you, Huey said, surprising himself. Butcher paused, looked back. You sure? Not exactly a safe play. Nothing we do is safe, and if this thing is really judging people based on guilt, maybe it needs to see that we're trying to do the right thing, even if we're doing it wrong. Butcher's grin widened. You're learning, lad. All right, let's go make friends with a demon. The Sage Grove facility had become a war zone. Ghost Rider stood in the center of the experimentation chamber, surrounded by the Seven in various states of damage. Homelander's suit was scorched. Queen Maeve's armor had melted in places. A-Train was still recovering from his face plant. The Deep cradled burned hands. Black Noir was pulling himself out of the wall, mask cracked enough to show one eye beneath. Last chance, Homelander said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Stand down, or I reduce you to component atoms. Ghost Rider's response was to extend his chain. The Hellfire links unwound, stretching across the chamber in a perimeter that trapped the Seven inside with him. You want to see my power? Let me show you what judgment looks like. The chain began to glow brighter, not orange-red like normal fire. Deeper, blacker. The flames turned dark purple, almost ultraviolet, and the temperature in the room dropped 30 degrees in 5 seconds. Frost formed on metal surfaces. The Seven's breath became visible. What the fuck? A-Train started. The chain whipped around the chamber's perimeter, and everywhere it touched, reality peeled back. The walls became transparent, showing not the outside world, but something else. Memories. Vaught's corporate history played out in ghostly images. Frederick Vought accepting Nazi gold to fund Compound 5 research, early test subjects dying in agony, children stolen from orphanages for experimentation, Soldier Boy's team covering up civilian casualties. The Seven's formation as a marketing opportunity rather than genuine heroism. "This is your legacy," Ghost Rider said. "This is the industry you defend. Built on corpses, sold as salvation." Queen Maeve watched the ghostly images and felt something inside her chest crack. She saw herself at 22, fresh into the Seven, idealistic and determined to make a difference. Then she saw the slow corruption. The first time she'd let Homelander kill someone without reporting it. The first corporate cover-up she'd participated in. The years of compromises that had eroded her into the cynical alcoholic she'd become. "Stop," she whispered. "Please stop." Ghost Rider looked at her. "You still have a conscience. That makes you different from him." His skull tilted toward Homelander. "But different doesn't mean innocent." Homelander had been watching the memory wall with increasing agitation. Now he snapped, "Enough!" His heat vision lanced out at full power, not aimed at Ghost Rider, aimed at the memory wall itself, trying to burn away the images of Vaught's crimes. The beams hit the ghostly projections and passed right through, striking the actual wall behind. Concrete exploded, support structures groaned. "You want to see power?" Homelander screamed. "I'll show you power." He flew straight at Ghost Rider, moving faster than he'd moved all night. His hands went for the rider's skull, intending to rip it off and prove that even demons could die. They collided with force that shattered the floor beneath them, dropping both combatants to the level below. The sub-basement was Sage Grove's deepest secret. The V-synthesis lab where Compound V was manufactured from source materials Vought never discussed publicly. Massive chemical vats lined the walls, equipment designed to process biological matter at industrial scale. And in the center, a containment pod holding something that glowed with unnatural light. Homelander and Ghost Rider crashed through the containment pod. Glass shattered, alarms screamed. And the thing inside, a concentrated sample of pure, experimental Compound V, the version Vought was developing to create controllable god-level soupies, spilled across the floor in a wave of viscous, glowing liquid. It touched Ghost Rider's bones, touched the hellfire that fueled him, and something impossible happened. The two substances, one supernatural, one pharmaceutical, began to react. The hellfire turned green, then purple, then colors that didn't exist in normal space. Ghost Rider's skull cracked, not from damage, but from internal pressure as his form tried to accommodate foreign energy. Johnny Blaze's consciousness, usually suppressed beneath Zarathos's demonic will, suddenly surfaced. He felt the Compound Vive trying to integrate with the spirit of vengeance, felt it attempting to amplify powers that were already infinite. The result was feedback, a loop of escalating energy that had nowhere to go. "Get away from me!" Ghost Rider's voice was pure blaze now, human and terrified. "It's going to..." The explosion was visible from orbit. The entire Sage Grove facility erupted in a column of green-purple hellfire that punched through 6 floors and emerged from the building's roof like a volcanic geyser. The blast wave shattered windows for 10 blocks. The heat flash vaporized everything within 50 feet of ground zero. When the light faded, Ghost Rider was gone. Homelander lay in a crater, suit completely destroyed, skin red with burns but already healing. Around him, the sub-basement had become a crater filled with molten metal and charred debris. The Seven descended carefully, staring at the devastation. "Did we win?" the Deep asked quietly. "I don't know," Queen Maeve said. She could still see the memory wall playing in her mind. Every compromise, every covered-up crime, every moment she'd chosen career over conscience. The images wouldn't leave. Ghost Rider's judgment had taken root. Black Noir approached Homelander, offering a hand up. The silent Supé's mask was shattered, revealing a burn-scarred face beneath. His eye, exposed for the first time in years, was streaming tears, not from pain, from something else. Homelander took the hand and stood, swaying slightly. "I want that thing found. I want it brought to me, and I want to know how to kill it permanently." "Sir," came Ashley's voice over the comms, shaky and wrong. "We have a problem." "What now?" "Ghost Rider's motorcycle. It's still burning topside, and it's moving on its own." Up on the street level, beyond the police cordon and news crews, the Hell Cycle sat in the middle of the road. Its engine revved once, twice. The Hellfire flared, and then it drove off, leaving a trail of flame heading toward Vought Tower. Empty, riderless, but with absolute purpose. In the destroyed sub-basement, glowing embers of green-purple hellfire began to coalesce, pulling together, forming bones, building structure from nothing. The Compound V explosion hadn't destroyed Ghost Rider. It had scattered him, but spirits of vengeance didn't die. They reformed, they persisted, they returned. And in the pizzeria in Queens, Billy Butcher and Huey Campbell watched the news footage of the explosion with growing excitement. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Butcher asked. "That we need to find Ghost Rider before Vought does." "No, lad." Butcher's grin was vicious. "I'm thinking that thing just gave us the perfect distraction. While Homelander's busy hunting demons, we rob him fucking blind. The Reformation took 3 hours. In a storm drain beneath Chelsea, the scattered embers of Ghost Rider's essence pulled themselves back together like iron filings drawn to a magnet. The Compound Vi explosion had done something unexpected. It had temporarily separated Johnny Blaze from Zarathos, forcing both consciousness into independent fragments. Now, as Hellfire rebuilt bone and wrapped it in spectral leather, they merged again with violent friction. Johnny Blaze's mind surfaced first, gasping with phantom breath. He remembered being a stunt rider, remembered making a deal with Mephisto to save his mentor, remembered the curse that had fused him with the spirit of vengeance. But this time, the reunion felt different. The Compound V particles still floating in his reconstructed form had changed something fundamental, so he could feel Zarathos more clearly now, not as a possessing entity, but as something integrated. "We are stronger," Zarathos' voice echoed in the space where Blaze's thoughts lived. The chemical sought to enhance. It enhanced what cannot be enhanced. "We are judgment made absolute." Blaze pulled himself up through the storm drain grate and emerged into an alley. His hands, bone wrapped in hellfire, flexed experimentally. The power felt different, more focused. The ambient rage that usually clouded his judgment when Zarathos took control was still there, but filtered through something new. He could think clearly while transformed. Compound 5 had accidentally perfected what Hell had been attempting for millennia. A spirit of vengeance that could plan. The Hell Cycle appeared at the alley's entrance, high engine idling with that distinctive scream chorus. It had been waiting, loyal not to rider, but to purpose. Blaze mounted the bike and closed his eyes. The Penance stare he'd used on Ashley had shown him a web of guilt stretching across Vaught's empire, but one thread burned brighter than the others. The scientists who'd opened the portal. The occult Compound Viv experiments. They'd been trying to create supernatural powers through chemistry, mixing ancient rituals with modern pharmacology. Their hubris had torn reality, and Ghost Rider intended to make them answer for it. The bike's engine roared. Blaze gunned it, following the guilt trail like a bloodhound. It led him not deeper into Manhattan, but out toward New Jersey, to a facility that didn't exist on any official Vought records. Dr. Marcus Chen had known this day would come. So when you spent 15 years trying to weaponize demonic forces, eventually something weaponized back. He sat in his office at the Vought Advanced Research Facility, codenamed Pandora by people who appreciated irony, watching security footage of Ghost Rider's reformation on a loop. "He's coming here," said Dr. Sarah Reeves, the project lead for Occult Enhancement Division. She stood at the window, staring at the perimeter fence like it might actually stop what was approaching. The binding rituals failed. The containment protocols failed. Everything failed. Not everything. Chen pulled up a file on his computer. "Project Godkiller, we still have one option." Reeves turned, eyes widening. "Marcus, no. That thing isn't ready. We don't even know if the host is stable. And after what happened at Sage Grove..." "After Sage Grove. Chen, we know Ghost Rider can be temporarily disrupted by compound Vi integration. Godkiller is built on that principle. We force-feed him so much enhanced mystical energy that his form can't maintain cohesion." Chen's hands shook as he typed authorization codes. "It's insane. But what choice do we have? We could run." "Where?" Chen laughed bitterly. "We opened a portal to hell to create superhero products. We're on every cosmic shit list in existence. Running just means dying tired." The lights flickered. Not from electrical failure, from something else. Shadows in the corners of the room grew longer, deeper, as if they were tunneling through reality. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in 5 seconds. Dr. Reeves' breath misted. "He's here already, but we didn't get breach alerts." "He's not breaching," Chen said quietly. "He's manifesting. We gave him a door. Now he can walk through walls if he wants." Ghost Rider stepped out of Chen's shadow like it was a doorway. One moment, empty space. The next, a burning skeleton in leather wrapping his chain around his fist. The office's sprinkler system activated automatically, raining water that evaporated inches from the rider's skull. "Dr. Marcus Chen," Ghost Rider said, voice that doubled timbre cutting through the hiss of evaporating water. "Dr. Sarah Reeves, you opened a breach between dimensions. You mixed human science with forces you don't understand. You made deals with entities that fed on suffering to power your experiments." Chen stood, hands raised. "We were following orders. Vought wanted supernatural supers to compete with potential mystical threats. We were protecting..." "Liar." The word carried weight that buckled Chen's knees. "You were ambitious. You wanted your names on the breakthrough that changed superhero warfare. The test subjects were acceptable losses. The dimensional damage was acceptable risk. The entities you contacted and failed to banish were acceptable collateral." Ghost Rider advanced. Each step left burning footprints in the corporate carpet. "But hell does not accept your risk assessments. Look at me." Chen tried to look away. His body refused. His eyes locked onto Ghost Rider's burning sockets, and the Penance stare began. He saw the test subjects first, 17 volunteers who'd been told they would receive cutting-edge compound V treatments. What they'd actually received was Chen's occult enhancement serum, to a mixture of V and ritualistic components harvested from places. The subjects had opened doors inside themselves. Things had crawled through. The screaming had lasted for days before their nervous systems finally gave out. Then Chen saw the entities. The things his team had contacted during ritual preparations. Demons, but not the Hollywood version. These were older, fundamental. They fed on the concept of suffering rather than the physical act. By opening a portal and failing to properly close it, Chen's team had given them access to Earth's ambient pain. They'd been feeding for months, growing stronger, preparing to expand their reach. Finally, Chen saw himself through his victim's eyes. The man in a lab coat explaining that their agony was necessary data. A scientist taking notes while someone begged for death. The researcher who went home every night, kissed his wife, played with his daughter, and never once lost sleep over what he'd done in the name of advancement. The guilt crushed Chen like atmospheric pressure. He collapsed, screaming. Dr. Reeves ran for the door. She made it 3 steps before Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around her ankle and jerked her backward. She hit the floor hard, air exploding from her lungs. "Please," she gasped. "I have kids. 2 daughters. They need their mother." Ghost Rider pulled her closer. "The test subjects had children too. They had mothers. They had people who needed them. But you needed data more. It was for the greater good. We were trying to protect humanity from supernatural threats. By becoming a supernatural threat yourselves." Ghost Rider's skull tilted, considering. Nah, there is a certain ironic poetry to it. He placed one skeletal hand on her forehead. Not the full Penance stare. Something else. A gift of sorts. Sarah Reeves suddenly understood, with perfect clarity, exactly what her victims had felt. Not just the physical pain, but the betrayal, the realization that they'd been lied to, used, discarded. The knowledge that their suffering meant nothing to the people who'd caused it. She would carry that understanding for the rest of her life. Every time she looked at her daughters, she would remember the children orphaned by her research. Every moment of happiness would be shadowed by the weight of what she'd done. Ghost Rider released her and turned to Chen, who was still curled on the floor, whimpering. "Your facility contains 17 entities you lack the knowledge to banish. They grow stronger every day. Eventually they will break containment and spread. You have created an apocalypse on a timer." Chen looked up through tear-streaked eyes. "Then kill me. End it. Death is too simple." Ghost Rider grabbed Chen by the collar and lifted him. "You will fix what you broke. You will spend every remaining day of your life containing the damage you've caused, and when you inevitably fail, when those entities break free and begin devouring this world, you will know it was your ambition that doomed humanity." He threw Chen against the wall. The scientist slumped, alive but fundamentally altered. The Penance stare had shown him truth he could never unknow. Ghost Rider walked to the office's main computer and placed his hand on the terminal. Hellfire spread through the circuitry, not destroying but copying. Every file and every experiment record, every piece of evidence about Vaught's occult research downloaded directly into the spirit of Vengeance's consciousness. He now knew every name, every scientist, executive, contractor, and enabler who'd participated in opening doors that should have stayed closed. 63 people total, spread across 4 continents. All of them complicit, all of them guilty, all of them on his list. The hell cycle was waiting outside. Ghost Rider mounted and revved the engine. He had work to do. But first, he needed to send a message. He turned the bike toward Vought Tower and accelerated. The guilty should know judgment was coming and that there was nowhere left to hide. In Vought Tower, Stan Edgar watched Ghost Rider leave the New Jersey facility on satellite tracking. The spirit of vengeance had just acquired evidence that could destroy Vaught's occult research division and by extension expose black budget programs worth billions. Edgar picked up his phone and dialed. "Activate the public relations contingency." "Yes, all of it. Frame the entity as a terrorist, supernatural extremist. Whatever polling says will work. I want Ghost Rider positioned as an existential threat to national security within 12 hours. He paused, listening. Then, "I don't care if it's true. Truth is what the public believes after we've spent $30 million on advertising. Make them believe Ghost Rider is the villain." Edgar hung up and turned to Ashley, who'd been released from medical but looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her hands shook constantly now, a permanent tremor from Penance stare trauma. "Ashley, you've experienced the entity's ability firsthand. I need you to craft a narrative around that experience. Unprovoked attack, psychological torture. You're the victim here." Ashley stared at him. "Sir, I am a victim of us, of Vought. That thing showed me. That thing is going to destroy this company if we don't control the narrative. So you have a choice. Play the victim we need, or become unemployable in every industry that matters. Your medical bills alone will bankrupt you without Vaught's insurance." The threat hung in the air. Ashley's newfound conscience warred with her survival instinct. Finally, she nodded. "What do you need me to say?" Edgar smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Good. Now let's turn a demon into a terrorist, and the 7 into humanity's saviors. Queen Maeve found Ghost Rider in the ruins of a bar in Hell's Kitchen. Ironic name, given the circumstances. The establishment had been shuttered for health violations 6 months ago, but someone had recently broken the locks. Inside, the rider sat on a bar stool, his flaming skull reflected in cracked mirrors behind rows of dusty bottles. He wasn't drinking. He was waiting. "How did you know I'd come?" Maeve asked, stepping through the doorway. She'd left her armor behind, wearing civilian clothes, jeans and a leather jacket that had seen better decades. She looked more human without the costume, more tired. "Because you still have a conscience," Ghost Rider said. His voice was softer now, more blaze than Zarathos. The Compound V integration had given him greater control over the transformations. "It's dying. You're drowning it in alcohol and cynicism, but it's not dead yet." Maeve sat 2 stools away, maintaining distance. "You going to kill me?" "That depends. Are you here to fight or to talk?" "I don't know." She laughed bitterly. "I've been a superhero for 16 years. I've saved thousands of people, but I've also stood by while Homelander murdered hundreds. I've let Vought cover up rapes, accidents, massacres. I tell myself it's survival, that if I speak up, they'll replace me with someone worse. But really," she trailed off. "Really, you're afraid," Ghost Rider finished. "Afraid of losing relevance, afraid of being powerless, afraid that without the costume and the corporate backing, you're nothing." Maeve's jaw clenched. "Fuck you. I'm not judging you. I'm describing you." Ghost Rider turned to face her fully. "You're not evil. Margaret Shaw. You're complicit. There's a difference. Evil chooses cruelty. Complicity chooses comfort. Both damn the soul, but one can still be redeemed." "How?" Maeve's voice cracked. "How do I fix 16 years of looking the other way?" "You can't. The damage is done. The people you failed to save are still dead, but you can stop adding to the body count. You can choose, right now, to be what you pretended to be." Maeve was silent for a long moment. Then, "If I go against Vought, they'll destroy me. Leak my sexuality, fabricate scandals, ruin my reputation. They own the media, the narrative, everything. Let them." Ghost Rider stood, his chain rattling. "You wear a crown. Queens should be willing to die for their kingdoms, not their public image." He walked toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. Auntie Homelander is planning something. I can feel it. His guilt is evolving, metastasizing. Whatever he's planning, it will kill thousands, maybe more. When the moment comes, you'll have to choose your safety or theirs." Ghost Rider vanished into shadow, leaving Maeve alone with her reflection in the cracked mirror. She looked at herself. Not the hero, not the product, but the woman underneath. The one who'd compromised everything she believed in for a paycheck and fake glory. She picked up a bottle from the bar, then put it down. For the first time in years, Maeve walked out of a bar without drinking. The deep was easier. Ghost Rider found him at the Church of the Collective, attending one of their mandatory healing sessions, Scientology-style therapy that cost $10,000 per hour and accomplished nothing except deepening members' psychological dependence. The rider crashed through the session room's wall, scattering therapists and celebrities. The deep scrambled backward, gill slits on his sides fluttering with panic. "Please, no, I'm getting better. I'm working on myself." Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around the Deep's throat and pulled him forward. "You've sexually assaulted 13 women in your career. You used your position, your fame, and your power to take what you wanted. When they complained, Vought paid them off. You never faced consequences." "I didn't know it was wrong," the Deep sobbed. "The industry, everyone does it. It's just how things work. And I'm in therapy now. I'm learning about consent and boundaries." "You were 30 years old when you assaulted Annie January. You knew it was wrong. You knew it was illegal. You knew it would hurt her, but you did it anyway because you could. Ghost Rider pulled the Deep closer. Look at me. No, please, I can't. Look at me. The Deep's eyes opened. The Penance stare showed him every assault from his victim's perspectives. The fear, the disgust, the betrayal of trust, the years of trauma, therapy, nightmares. He felt what they felt, not as abstract concept, but as lived experience. He felt Annie's terror in that room, her desperate attempt to rationalize it as industry hazing. He felt the others, too. Every woman he'd harmed. When the stare released him, the Deep collapsed, vomiting. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. Now you do, Aunt, and you will remember. Every time you look in a mirror, every time you see a woman alone, every time you feel an urge, you'll remember what it cost them." Ghost Rider released him. "Son, your penance is living with the knowledge of what you are. Don't make me come back." The rider left through the hole he'd created. The Deep stayed on the floor, crying, finally understanding why people flinched when he approached. A-Train was training in a private gym, trying to rebuild his speed after his heart problems. Ghost Rider appeared in the corner of the room, silent and still as death. A-Train saw him and immediately dropped into a defensive stance. "I'm not fighting you again. You'll just kick my ass. And honestly, I can't afford more injuries." "Reggie Franklin," Ghost Rider said. "You killed Robin Ward, January 24th, 2019. You were high on Compound V, running a race you didn't need to win. She was crossing the street legally. You didn't even see her until you were standing over her remains." A-Train's face went pale. It was an accident. I didn't mean to." "But you did. And then you lied about it. Called it unavoidable. Let Vought spin it as collateral damage from superhero work. Her boyfriend, Hugh Campbell, joined the boys specifically to make you pay for what you did." "I know." A-Train's voice was barely a whisper. "I live with it every day. I see her face when I close my eyes. I'm trying to be better. I've been trying to make amends. By killing other people in corporate gang wars, by helping Homelander maintain control, by choosing your career over justice." Ghost Rider stepped closer. "You feel guilt, Reggie. Real guilt. But feeling bad isn't the same as being better. Look at me." A-Train squeezed his eyes shut. "If you make me see what she saw, if you show me, my heart can't take it. The stress will literally kill me." "Then let it." Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around A-Train's chest, directly over his damaged heart. "Die guilty, or live trying to atone. Choose." The Penance stare began, but Ghost Rider limited its intensity, not out of mercy, but calculation. A-Train saw Robin's death from her perspective, the sudden impact, the confusion, the pain, the knowledge that she would never see her father again, never finish college, never exist beyond this random violent moment. A-Train's heart rate spiked dangerously. His chest tightened. His enhanced metabolism flooded his system with adrenaline. But the cardiac damage from years of V abuse meant his heart couldn't handle the load. He felt the arrhythmia starting, felt his pulse becoming irregular. Ghost Rider released him. A-Train collapsed, gasping, alive but marked. The vision would stay with him. Every race, every speed enhancement, every moment of glory would be shadowed by Robin's face. "You get to live," Ghost Rider said, "because unlike the others, you might actually change. Prove me right, or I'll return to finish this." Black Noir was different. Ghost Rider found him on a rooftop overlooking Vought Tower, and when the rider emerged from the shadows, Noir didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't react at all. "You're a weapon," Ghost Rider said, "trained since childhood, conditioned to follow orders without question. Your entire identity is violence in service to corporate goals." Noir remained silent. "I can't judge you the same way I judge the others. You have guilt. I sense it. deep trauma, but it's locked behind dissociation so profound that you barely register as a person anymore. You're a tool that thinks. Ghost Rider studied the silent soupe. So I'll make this simple. I'm coming for Vought, for Homelander, for everyone who built this rotten system. When that moment comes, you'll have a choice. Defend the company that turned you into a weapon, or walk away. There's no redemption in you. You're too broken for that, but there might be escape. Black Noir tilted his head slightly, the only acknowledgement Ghost Rider would receive. We'll see what you choose, the rider said, and vanished into smoke. Noir remained on the rooftop for 3 more hours, motionless, processing information his fractured psyche couldn't quite organize. But somewhere in the maze of trauma and conditioning, a question formed. What if he chose neither? Homelander was waiting in his penthouse when Ghost Rider arrived. The Soupy had anticipated this visit, prepared for it. The room was lined with technology borrowed from the FBSA's Supernatural Containment Division, electromagnetic fields tuned to disrupt mystical energy, silver-lined surfaces, holy water sprinklers in the ceiling. "Welcome to the trap," Homelander said, pressing a button. Everything activated simultaneously. Ghost Rider stumbled as the electromagnetic field hit him. The holy water rained down, sizzling against his skull. Silver-laced panels slid into place, creating a containment cube. For 3 seconds, it worked. Ghost Rider's form flickered, to the hellfire dimming. Then the Compound Vi enhancement kicked in. The Rider's power, augmented by the accidental integration in Sage Grove's basement, adapted. The electromagnetic field shattered. The holy water evaporated before touching him. The silver panels melted. "Impossible," Homelander whispered. Ghost Rider advanced through the ruined containment field. "So, you can't trap what isn't truly physical. You can't contain what answers to laws older than your universe. I am Judgment, John, and Judgment doesn't negotiate." "Then judge me," Homelander screamed. "Show me all my sins, make me feel bad, see if I give a single fuck." Ghost Rider grabbed Homelander by the throat. "I already tried. Your psychopathy makes you immune to standard penance. But there's another way." The Rider's eyes flared, and something new happened. And instead of showing Homelander his victim's pain, Ghost Rider showed him something worse. Truth. Homelander saw himself as others saw him. Not the god he imagined, but a damaged child in a cape. Pathetic, needy, desperate for validation from people he claimed to be above. He saw how the public actually viewed him, not with genuine love, but with manufactured worship, ratings-driven adoration that would evaporate the moment Vaught's marketing budget dried up. He saw how the Seven feared and hated him, how Vought executives mocked him in private meetings, called him the product, discussed his eventual replacement like he was a discontinued iPhone model. He saw the truth he'd spent his entire life avoiding. He wasn't special. He was a weapon, a product, a slave. Homelander's face went through a dozen expressions: rage, denial, horror, and when finally something that might have been grief. Then his expression hardened into something terrifying. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You just freed me." "From what?" "From caring what any of you think." Homelander's eyes began to glow. "If I'm not a god, if I'm just a weapon, then I might as well act like one." The public relations campaign launched at 6 a.m. Eastern, coordinated across every media outlet Vought owned or influenced, which was most of them. VNN led with a 2-hour special, Demon in America, the Ghost Rider threat. The production values were flawless. Dramatic music, slow-motion footage of Ghost Rider's attacks edited to remove context. Testimonials from witnesses who described unprovoked violence against innocent security personnel. Ashley Barrett appeared in a primetime interview, makeup artists having carefully arranged her Penance stare burns to look worse under studio lighting. She sat across from Cameron Coleman, VNN's most trusted anchor, and delivered her lines with the hollow-eyed conviction of someone who knew exactly what she was doing and hated herself for it. "He grabbed me," Ashley said, voice trembling on cue. "It's this creature. And he did something to my mind. I can't sleep anymore. Can't eat. The doctors say I have PTSD from a psychic attack. My therapist calls it supernatural trauma syndrome. So you're saying Ghost Rider is using psychological warfare against innocent Americans?" Coleman leaned forward, concerned face perfected over years of fake news delivery. "I'm saying he's a terrorist, with abilities we don't understand. And if he can do this to me, a Vought executive with security access, imagine what he could do to regular people." The interview was masterful. By 8 a.m., #DemonTerrorist was trending. By noon, 73% of Americans polled believed Ghost Rider was a national security threat. By evening, the president had issued a statement calling for Ghost Rider's immediate capture or elimination. And in the Vought strategy room, Stan Edgar watched the polling data with satisfaction. Public opinion is a weapon more powerful than any soupy. Ghost Rider may be unkillable, but if we make him the villain, he loses. Judgment without legitimacy is just murder. "Sir," an analyst interrupted, "we're seeing counter-narratives forming on social media. Independent journalists are posting unedited footage showing Ghost Rider only attacking guilty parties. There's a growing faction claiming he's doing what law enforcement won't, holding supes accountable." Edgar's expression didn't change. "Suppress it. Buy the platforms if necessary. Discredit the journalists. Paint anyone defending the entity as conspiracy theorists or terrorist sympathizers. And I want the narrative locked down within 24 hours. Some of these journalists work for outlets we don't control. International media, independent streaming. Then make examples of the ones we can reach. Lawsuits, career destruction, whatever it takes." Edgar turned to face his team. "This isn't about truth, it's about control. We control the narrative, we control reality. Never forget that." Billy Butcher watched the VNN broadcast with disgust that was almost admiration. "Fucking brilliant," he muttered. "Can't kill the demon, so they paint him as the devil. Classic Vought." Huey paced the hideout, anxiety radiating from every gesture. "Billy, this is bad. If the public turns against Ghost Rider, that means they're buying Vought's bullshit even more. We lose our chance to expose them. Unless," Butcher said slowly, "we use Vought's own weapon against them. They want to make this about narrative? Fine, let's give the people a better story." MM looked up from his laptop. "What are you thinking?" "We've got evidence of Vought's occult experiments. Ghost Rider downloaded it from Sage Grove before he left. We leak it. Show the public exactly what Vought was doing, opening portals to hell, torturing people, creating the very demon they're now calling a terrorist. Turn it into a they made their own monster story." "How do you know Ghost Rider has that evidence?" Huey asked. "Because I asked him." Butcher grinned at their shocked expressions. "What, you think I haven't been in contact? Tracked him down after the Sage Grove explosion. Had a lovely chat about mutual interests." Frenchie whistled. "You met with the demon and didn't tell us?" Didn't seem relevant at the time. But now, Butcher pulled up files on his screen. Schematics, experiment logs, ritual summoning procedures, all stamped with Vaught's classified watermark. Now it's bloody relevant. Ghost Rider's been feeding us intel on Vaught's black projects. In exchange, we help him locate targets. MM stood up, voice hard. "Butcher, we're not becoming his death squad. We don't execute people based on supernatural judgment. Don't we? How many people have we killed, MM? How many explosives have we planted? How many bodies have we buried? We're already killers. Ghost Rider's just more honest about it. There's a difference between killing in self-defense and systematic execution." "Is there? Really?" Butcher's voice rose. Once we've been trying to take down Vought for years with blackmail and sabotage. Ghost Rider does more damage in one night than we've done in 5 years. Maybe it's time we admit we need him." Kimiko signed rapidly. Frenchie translated. "She says Ghost Rider isn't ours to control. He's a force of nature. We can work with him, but we can't direct him. And if we're not careful, he'll judge us too." The room fell silent. Everyone had blood on their hands. Everyone had compromised their morals in pursuit of Vaught's destruction. If Ghost Rider truly judged all guilt without exception, the boys were on that list. "Then we make ourselves useful enough that he needs us alive," Butcher said finally. "We leak this evidence. We turn the public against Vought. And when Ghost Rider makes his final move, we make sure we're on the winning side." The leaked documents hit the internet at midnight. Frenchie routed them through a dozen proxy servers before uploading to WikiLeaks, anonymous affiliated sites, and independent journalism platforms that Vought couldn't easily suppress. By 2 a.m., #Vought occult was trending. By 4 a.m., international news outlets were picking up the story. The evidence was damning. Experiment logs detailed ritualistic torture disguised as compound V enhancement. Emails between executives discussed acceptable losses when opening dimensional breaches. Video footage showed test subjects transforming into things that violated natural law, screaming in languages that predated human speech, and buried in the files, proof that Ghost Rider's arrival wasn't random. Vaught's occult experiments had deliberately opened a portal to attract supernatural entities. They'd wanted to study them, weaponize them, create a new generation of mystical supes. They'd just succeeded beyond their nightmare expectations. Stan Edgar watched his carefully constructed narrative collapse in real time. By sunrise, the polling had shifted. 48% now believed Ghost Rider was responding to Vaught's crimes rather than committing them. The debate raged across social media. Was he a terrorist or a justified vigilante? "Sir, we need a response," Ashley said. She looked even worse than before, the stress of lying about her trauma compounding the actual trauma from the Penance stare. "The leaked documents are being verified by independent experts. We can't claim they're fake." Edgar steepled his fingers. "Then we don't claim they're fake. We claim they're out of context. Rogue experiments, unauthorized research by fringe scientists. Vought International had no knowledge of these programs and is shocked to discover them. We fire the scientists publicly, maybe arrest a few, show we're taking action. The scientists will talk. They'll implicate upper management. Not if they have accidents first. Sad, really. The stress of their crimes catching up with them." Edgar's voice was utterly emotionless. "Clean it up, Ashley. And next time, make sure our servers are actually secure. This leak is unacceptable." Ashley nodded mechanically and left. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone and made a call she'd been putting off for 16 hours. A number Ghost Rider had burned into her consciousness during the Penance stare. A lifeline, and if she ever decided to do the right thing. "I'm ready," she whispered when the call connected. "I'll testify. Against Vought, against all of it. I don't care what happens to me anymore. Just, please make it mean something." On the other end, Billy Butcher smiled. "Welcome to the fucking resistance, love." Ghost Rider rode through Manhattan as the sun rose, watching his image projected on every screen. Some called him hero, others called him monster. Most were simply afraid, which was appropriate. Fear of consequences was the beginning of justice. He felt the shift in public opinion like a physical thing. The collective consciousness of millions of people deciding moment by moment whether his actions were righteous or evil. It was exhausting. Johnny Blaze had never wanted to be a symbol, and he'd made a deal to save someone he loved and been cursed with eternal vengeance. But Zarathos fed on this. The spirit of vengeance grew stronger when humanity wrestled with questions of justice and punishment. "They fear us," Zarathos whispered in Blaze's mind. "Good. Fear is wisdom. They should fear Vought more," Blaze thought back. "We're just the consequence of their evil. They created us. Then let us be the consequence they cannot escape." The Hell Cycle's engine roared. Ghost Rider had one more target before the final confrontation. The man who'd authorized it all, the CEO, who'd turned superheroism into an industry and judgment into a commodity. Stan Edgar had a reckoning coming, and unlike the others, Edgar had no powers to hide behind. Just money, influence, and the belief that corporate structure made him untouchable. The Ghost Rider was about to prove him wrong. In Vought Tower, Homelander stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the sunrise. He'd been standing there for 6 hours, motionless, thinking. Ghost Rider's truth-showing had broken something fundamental in his psyche. Not his sanity, but his pretense. For years, Homelander had performed, smiled for cameras, pretended to care about human approval, convinced himself he needed their love. But Ghost Rider had shown him the truth. He was a product, a weapon, a slave to public opinion and corporate control. But weapons could be freed. Slaves could rebel, and if he was going to be a monster, he might as well be an honest one. Homelander's eyes began to glow, not with heat vision, but with decision. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Ashley, schedule a live press conference. All major networks. I have an announcement to make about the Ghost Rider situation." "Sir, we should coordinate with PR first. No coordination, no scripts, just me and the truth." Homelander smiled, and it was the most genuine expression he'd worn in years. It's time America learned what their heroes really are. He hung up and looked at his reflection in the window. No more pretending, no more performance. Just power, unleashed for everyone to see. Ghost Rider wanted judgment? Fine. Homelander would show the world what happened when you judged a god. The press conference was scheduled for noon in Times Square, same location where Ghost Rider had first arrived, now transformed into a makeshift stage with security barriers and a podium bearing Vaught's logo. 10,000 people crowded behind police lines. Every major network carried the feed. Homelander's announcement had been promoted as a decisive moment in the supernatural crisis. Stan Edgar watched from Vought Tower with growing unease. Homelander had refused all script approvals, ignored all strategic consultations. The Sup had even disabled his subcutaneous tracking chip, a violation of his contract that would normally trigger immediate legal action. But you couldn't sue someone who could level cities. On the ground, Homelander descended from the sky with his usual theatrical precision. He wore his suit, perfectly pressed, a cape flowing in artificial wind from hidden fans. But his smile was different, sharper, more honest. He stepped to the podium, and the crowd's cheers felt hollow even to the people producing them. "America," Homelander began, voice amplified across the square. "You've been lied to. By Vought, by me, by everyone in a cape who's ever told you we're here to protect you." The crowd's cheering faltered. On news sets across the country, anchors exchanged confused glances. This wasn't the script. Ghost Rider, the demon you've all been told to fear, showed me something interesting last night. He showed me the truth about what I am, what we all are. Homelander's eyes found a camera and stared directly into it. We're not heroes. We're products. Created in labs, injected with chemicals as babies, untrained to smile and pose and pretend we give a damn about your meaningless lives. In Vought Tower, Edgar's hand moved toward a red button on his desk, the emergency protocol that would activate Homelander's failsafes. But Homelander had already removed his tracking chip. There were no more failsafes. "But here's the beautiful part," Homelander continued, his smile widening. "I don't have to pretend anymore. Ghost Rider freed me. He showed me that your love was always fake. corporate manufactured worship. The moment Vought stops spending billions on my image, you'll forget I exist. So why should I care what you think? The crowd began to panic, pushing toward exits. Police moved in, but slowly, afraid to provoke the soup on stage. So here's the new deal, America. I'm done performing, done pretending. You want a hero? Too bad. You got a god instead, and gods don't negotiate with insects. His eyes flashed red. Twin beams of heat vision lanced upward, cutting through the Vought logo suspended above the stage. The metal sign crashed down and people screamed, stampeding. Ghost Rider emerged from the shadows at the edge of Times Square. He'd known this was coming, felt Homelander's psyche fracturing during their last encounter. The truth hadn't made Homelander better. It had made him worse. Removed his last restraint. There he is, Homelander shouted, pointing at the burning skull. The demon who showed me the truth. Let's see which of us is really unkillable. Homelander launched himself off the stage, crossing the square at supersonic speed. Ghost Rider's chain lashed out, but Homelander twisted mid-flight, dodging with precision learned from thousands of training hours. He hit Ghost Rider like a missile, driving both of them through the street into the subway tunnel below. This time, Homelander wasn't holding back. No posturing for cameras, no concern for collateral damage. Just pure, unleashed violence. He grabbed Ghost Rider's skull and started slamming it repeatedly against concrete pillars, each impact shattering stone and bone. "You made me see," Homelander screamed. "Made me understand what I really am, so let me return the favor." He threw Ghost Rider onto the subway tracks just as a train approached. The locomotive hit the rider at full speed, derailing in an explosion of sparks and twisted metal. Passengers spilled out, terrified, trampling each other to escape. Ghost Rider rose from the wreckage, hellfire burning brighter. So the compound phi enhancement was kicking in, his power adapting to Homelander's assault. His bones reformed faster, his chain grew longer, hotter. The spirit of vengeance was learning. "You think you freed yourself," Ghost Rider said, his voice echoing through the tunnel. "But you just traded one cage for another. You're still defined by your need for validation. Now you need people to fear you instead of love you. It's the same weakness wearing a different mask. Then let me show you what weakness looks like." Homelander's heat vision lanced out at full power. The beams carved through subway infrastructure, melting support columns, igniting electrical systems. The tunnel began to collapse. Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around a falling pillar and swung it like a bat, catching Homelander in midair. The super crashed through 3 tunnel walls, emerging in a parking garage 2 blocks away. Cars exploded from the impact. Civilians ran screaming. They fought through the garage, up through street level, across buildings, leaving a trail of destruction that made their previous encounter look restrained. Homelander used his full arsenal, heat vision, super strength, speed, flight, trying to overwhelm Ghost Rider through sheer power. The rider countered with hellfire, chain weaponry, and something new. The ability to manifest flames that didn't just burn, but consumed. The compound V enhancement had unlocked depths of his power that even Zarathos hadn't known existed. They crashed through the side of a residential building. Families scattered. Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around Homelander's waist, yanking him back before his wild heat vision could kill anyone. The rider threw Homelander skyward, following on his hell cycle that somehow drove up the building's side, defying gravity. They fought above Manhattan, 2 beings of impossible power exchanging blows that created sonic booms. News helicopters circled, broadcasting to billions. The world watched their god and their demon try to kill each other above the city. Homelander grabbed Ghost Rider in midair and flew straight up, accelerating past the speed of sound, past the cloud layer, into the thin air where humans couldn't breathe. He was trying to suffocate the rider, a tactic that might have worked on anyone with lungs. Ghost Rider didn't breathe. He ignited. The hellfire explosion was visible from orbit. Homelander screamed as supernatural flames seared flesh that had never burned before. They plummeted back to Earth, locked together, burning and bleeding. They crashed into Vought Tower's roof with force that shattered the top 5 floors. Stan Edgar's office imploded, the CEO barely escaping through emergency exits as his empire's headquarters became a war zone. Ghost Rider and Homelander rose simultaneously from the rubble. Both damaged, both regenerating, both recognizing that this fight had no end. "You can't kill me," Homelander snarled, flesh reforming over burns. "I'm invincible." "And you can't kill me," Ghost Rider replied, bones knitting together. "I'm vengeance. I exist as long as injustice exists, as long as people like you exist." They charged at each other again and were separated by a third force. Queen Maeve landed between them, her armor scorched, her expression resolute. Behind her, the rest of the 7 emerged from the stairwell. A-Train, the Deep, and Black Noir. They formed a line between the combatants. "This ends," Maeve said. "Both of you." Homelander laughed. "You're going to stop me. You couldn't stop me before, and now I'm done pretending to care about you." "We're not here to stop you," Maeve said. "We're here to choose. You wanted us to be honest? Fine. Here's honesty. You're a monster. You've always been a monster, and we're done enabling you." A train stepped forward, visibly trembling. "You killed Supersonic. You've killed dozens of people. We helped you cover it up because we were afraid. But I'm done being afraid." The Deep raised his trident with shaking hands. "I'm a piece of shit. Ghost Rider showed me that. But you're worse, and if I'm going to die today, I'd rather it be fighting you than serving you." Black Noir remained silent, but he moved to stand with the others. His cracked mask revealed one eye that held something new: defiance. Homelander stared at his team, his slaves, and felt something he'd never experienced before. Genuine isolation. They'd finally stopped obeying. "You're really doing this?" Homelander's voice was soft, almost hurt. "You're choosing him over me?" "We're choosing ourselves," Maeve said. "For the first time in 16 years, we're choosing ourselves." Homelander's eyes began to glow. "Then you die first." Before he could attack, Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around Homelander's throat from behind. The rider pulled tight, not to choke. Homelander didn't need air, but to restrain. "She gave you the choice," Ghost Rider said. "Now I give you one. Stand down, or I drag you to hell. Literally. I can open the portal, force you through, let you experience what hell really means for someone like you." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" The chain began to glow with that purple-black hellfire, the color that shouldn't exist. The temperature around them dropped again, frost forming on metal. Reality bent, creaked, started to tear. A crack appeared in the air behind Ghost Rider, and through it, something ancient and hungry stirred. Homelander felt genuine fear for the second time in his life. Whatever was beyond that crack wanted him. Specifically him. It could feel his sins like a beacon. "Last chance," Ghost Rider said. "Submit to human justice or face divine judgment." Homelander looked at the 7 standing against him, and she looked at Ghost Rider holding him at the threshold of hell. Looked at the cameras still broadcasting this moment to billions, and made his choice. His eyes flashed, heat vision at full power, aimed not at Ghost Rider, but at the supporting structure beneath them. The entire roof section collapsed, everyone falling through floors of office space and wreckage. In the chaos, Homelander broke free and flew, not to fight, to escape. He accelerated to Mach 5 and vanished into the sky, heading somewhere he could regroup, rebuild, plan revenge. Ghost Rider watched him go and knew this wasn't over, but for now, Homelander was broken in ways that mattered. His team had betrayed him. His invincibility had been challenged. His god complex had been exposed as the frightened child it had always been. The portal to hell closed. A Ghost Rider's chain unwound, releasing nothing. The seven stood in the rubble, alive but changed. They'd finally taken a stand, and the city had watched. The world had watched. In the streets below, evacuated civilians began to return, staring up at Vought Tower's destroyed top floors. Some took photos, others prayed. A few cheered. And in the ruins of his office, Stan Edgar crawled from beneath his desk, suit filthy, empire collapsing, but already calculating his next move. The battle was over. The war had just begun. 3 weeks later, Manhattan looked almost normal. Vaught's contractors had cleared the rubble. Emergency funds had paid for repairs. News coverage had shifted to analyzing rather than panicking. The world had adjusted to the new reality. Demons existed, gods could bleed, and the seven weren't invincible. Ghost Rider sat in the same Hell's Kitchen bar where he'd confronted Maeve, skull flame dimmed to embers, watching news coverage on a cracked television. The anchor, not VNN this time, but an independent journalist who'd broken the occult experiment story, summarized recent events with refreshing honesty. Vought International stock has plummeted 43% following revelations about unauthorized occult research. CEO Stan Edgar faces congressional hearings next month. Homelander remains missing, his whereabouts unknown. And the entity known as Ghost Rider, classified as a supernatural vigilante by federal authorities, remains active in New York despite ongoing efforts to negotiate his surrender. Johnny Blaze's voice emerged from the flaming skull, more present than usual. The compound fee integration had given him unprecedented control over transformations. He could think clearly, even while Zarathos manifested. They still don't understand. We're not negotiating. We're not leaving. This city's sins run too deep. The door opened. Billy Butcher walked in, followed by Huey and MM. They'd been communicating through intermediaries for weeks, but this was their first direct meeting since Vought Tower's collapse. "Demon," Butcher said by way of greeting. He sat at the bar, maintaining respectful distance. "Heard you've been keeping busy. 12 more Vought executives judged in the last 2 weeks. CIA's going spare trying to protect corporate assets from supernatural accountability." "They chose their side," Ghost Rider said. "Everyone does eventually." "About that." Butcher pulled out a tablet, showing a list of names. "Ashley Barrett gave us this before she went into witness protection. 63 people total who were directly involved in the occult experiments. You've eliminated 17. That leaves 46 guilty parties still breathing. I know where they are. I can feel their guilt like a beacon. Yeah, well, some of them have kids, families. They're scum, no question, but they're human scum." Butcher met Ghost Rider's burning gaze without flinching. "So here's the offer. We bring them in. Legal justice, trials, prison. Some of them might even flip on Edgar. Help us bury Vought for good. But only if you give us time. Only if you don't turn them all into charcoal." Ghost Rider was silent for a long moment. Zarathos wanted to reject this. Hell's justice didn't wait for human courts. But Johnny Blaze remembered something he'd seen in Ashley's mind during the Penance stare. Genuine remorse. Not all guilt was equal. Not all guilty parties were beyond redemption. 30 days, Ghost Rider said finally. "Bring them to justice within 30 days, or I finish this my way." "Deal." Butcher extended his hand. Ghost Rider looked at it, then grasped it. Butcher didn't flinch when his palm touched bone wrapped in hellfire. "You know, for a demon, you're surprisingly reasonable." "I'm not a demon. I'm a spirit of vengeance. There's a difference." "Right. And I'm not a terrorist. I'm a freedom fighter. Now we all have our preferred labels." Butcher released the handshake. "One more thing. Homelander. You scared him off, but he'll come back. Men like that always do. When he resurfaces, and he will, We need to be ready. Together. I don't need allies. Maybe not. But the people you're protecting do. Homelander's next move won't be subtle. He's learned his public image doesn't matter anymore. That makes him exponentially more dangerous. So yeah, you could fight him alone. But wouldn't it be smarter to have backup? Ghost Rider considered this. The boys were compromised, violent, morally gray operators. But they were trying, in their broken way, to do something righteous. That counted for more than people realized. When the time comes, Ghost Rider said, I'll stand with you, but understand this. I judge everyone, including you, Billy Butcher. Now your sins are extensive. Your hands are drenched in blood. The only reason you're still walking is because your targets have been worse than you are. That scale tips, and we become enemies. Fair enough. Butcher stood to leave, then paused. Quick question, that thing you showed Homelander, the truth about what he is. Can you do that to anyone? Yes, why? No reason, just wondering what I'd see if you looked at me that way. Butcher's smile was humorless. Probably best I never find out. The boys left. Ghost Rider remained at the bar, watching news coverage scroll updates about the Seven's uncertain future. Queen Maeve had gone public with some of Homelander's crimes, carefully curated revelations that damaged Vought without completely destroying the superhero industry. She was walking a tightrope, trying to reform from within, so Ghost Rider admired the attempt, even if he suspected it would fail. A train was in rehab, both physical and psychological. The Deep had quit the Church of the Collective and entered actual therapy. Black Noir had vanished completely, the most honest choice any of them had made. And Homelander. Ghost Rider felt him sometimes. A psychic weight pressing on the edge of perception. The Soup was out there, hiding, planning, nursing his wounded pride and shattered worldview. When he returned, it would be catastrophic. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, Ghost Rider had work to do. He rose from the bar stool and walked toward the door, transformation beginning. Johnny Blaze's consciousness receded as Zarathos took control. The spirit of vengeance had a purpose. Manhattan still held sins that needed burning, and Vaught's corporate structure still protected the guilty. And somewhere in the darkness, other supernatural entities drawn by the dimensional breach were beginning to emerge. Hell had sent one rider. If humanity didn't clean up its act, Hell would send more. The Hell cycle waited in the alley, engine idling with its chorus of screams. Ghost Rider mounted and revved the throttle. The flames intensified, burning from orange to white hot. He had 17 names left on tonight's list. People who thought corporate lawyers and federal protection would save them. They were about to learn otherwise. In a penthouse across the river, Stan Edgar sat in temporary offices, surrounded by legal documents and crisis consultants. Vought International was hemorrhaging money and reputation. Congressional hearings loomed, and criminal investigations were expanding, but Edgar hadn't built an empire by giving up when things got difficult. He pulled up a classified file on his computer. Project Godkiller, the weapon they'd been developing at Pandora facility. Ghost Rider had destroyed the New Jersey site, but the research existed in other locations. Backups, redundancies. And while the original plan, using supernatural energies against Ghost Rider, had failed, there were other approaches. Edgar made a call. Dr. Vogelbaum? Yes, I know you retired. I'm aware your work on Homelander left you with ethical concerns, but I need your expertise for something different. Something that might actually save lives instead of creating monsters. Are you interested? He listened, smiled thinly. Excellent. Report to our Seattle facility tomorrow. And doctor, say this project is classified above top secret. Tell no one, not even your family. Edgar hung up and looked at Ghost Rider's image on his screen, frozen from news footage, burning skull wreathed in hellfire. Supernatural being. unkillable through conventional means. But everything had a weakness. Everything could be contained, studied, replicated, controlled. Vought International had weaponized humanity. Why not weaponize divinity? 2,000 miles away, in a cabin in Montana, Homelander stood at a window watching snow fall. His reflection showed burns that were still healing. Supernatural fire left scars even on invulnerable flesh. He touched his throat where Ghost Rider's chain had pulled him toward Hell's portal. He'd felt something beyond that threshold. Something worse than judgment. Something like purpose. Hell wanted him, more specifically, had marked him. And the worst part, the part that Homelander couldn't stop thinking about, was that Hell might be right. He'd killed hundreds, felt nothing, destroyed lives on whims, called it strength when it was just a broken child lashing out with God-level power. Ghost Rider had shown him the truth. He wasn't special, wasn't chosen, wasn't anything but a weapon that had outlived its use. But weapons could be repurposed. Children could grow up. Gods could be real if they simply stopped pretending to be human. Homelander's eyes began to glow, not with heat vision, with decision. He would return to the city, to Vought, to the Seven who'd betrayed him. And when he did, there would be no more performance, no more restraint, no more pretending he cared about anything except power. Ghost Rider wanted judgment? Fine. Homelander would show the world what happened when you judge something that refused to be judged. In the Hell's Kitchen bar, Ghost Rider paused at the door, skull turning toward the west. He felt it, Homelander's rage building like a storm on the horizon. The Super's psychotic break wasn't complete. It was just beginning. He will return, Zarathos observed, and when he does, he will try to burn this city to prove he cannot be controlled. Then we'll stop him, Johnny Blaze responded. However many times it takes. You cannot kill him. I cannot kill him. We are at impasse. No, we're at war, and wars aren't won by single battles. They're won by persistence, by standing up every time you get knocked down, by refusing to let evil win just because it's too hard to fight. You sound like a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm vengeance. But maybe vengeance is what this world needs right now. Someone who won't compromise. Someone who can't be bought. Someone who sees all the sins they've tried to hide and says, not anymore. Ghost Rider gunned the Hell Cycle's engine and rode into the night. Behind him, Manhattan's lights stretched to the horizon. Millions of people sleeping, working, living, most of them innocent, some of them guilty. All of them under his protection, whether they knew it or not. The spirit of vengeance had been awakened by corporate evil, but it would not be satisfied until every sin had been answered, every crime had been punished, every person who'd hidden behind money and power and influence had faced judgment. Vought International had opened a portal to Hell. Now Hell had sent its answer, and the message was clear. Your sins will find you. Thus your crimes will be punished. Your false gods will kneel before true justice. The reign of consequence had begun, and it would not end until the guilty learned to fear not what they could get away with, but what they deserved. Ghost Rider's arrival in the boys' universe had fundamentally altered the balance of power. Vought International faced legal destruction from exposed experiments. The Seven had fractured, with members choosing conscience over career. Homelander, once untouchable, had been wounded, humiliated, and shown his own weakness. The public had witnessed supernatural judgment and couldn't return to blind worship of corporate heroes. But the war was far from over. Edgar was already plotting Ghost Rider's containment. Homelander was gathering power for catastrophic return. Dimensional breaches remained open, you allowing other entities to seep through. And the boys had a new ally who might judge them as harshly as he judged their enemies. Johnny Blaze understood what many didn't. Introducing absolute justice into a morally gray universe created more chaos than it solved. But sometimes chaos was necessary. Sometimes systems were so corrupted that only burning them down revealed what could be rebuilt. Ghost Rider would remain in this universe as long as sins required vengeance, as long as Vought exploited the vulnerable, as long as false gods pretended to be heroes while committing atrocities. He was the consequence they'd spent billions trying to avoid, the accountability they'd bought politicians to prevent, the judgment they'd believed money could defer forever. They'd been wrong. Hell was patient. Vengeance was eternal. Sig, the spirit of vengeance had only just begun collecting debts in a city that owed more than it could ever repay. The flaming skull would ride until justice was done. And in the boys' universe, that might take forever. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.